Hi, morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Who's this? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, this is Rajendran from Siemens Gamesa.
Oh, hi. Hi, Mr. Rajendra. All right, so I'm going to quickly, I think we're going to be getting live now. We just finished the practice session. Maybe you can just quickly, turn on your camera once so I can see you.
Pardon?
If you could just switch on your camera as well once.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Hi. All right. So I think we are just starting. We're going live now. So I'll have to, I think we'll refer the entire program to as the agenda. So I think welcome, and we're just starting.
Mr. Rajendran, till then you can just unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. All right, Ekta, I think it's time we can let the participants in. Please go live. All right. Good afternoon, all. I see a lot of people are getting in now. I'm just going to be waiting for another 20 seconds, 30 seconds for everyone to get in. Welcome to a seminar on wind asset management and optimization. How do we create long-term value creation for wind farm owners? Great, wonderful. I'm seeing more and more people getting in. All right. Okay, so let me just first start off by quickly giving you an overview of who we are, what we do. So Wind Insider has been in the industry for about 8 to 10 years. We've been uh, very focused and dedicated to the growth of wind sector in India as well as Asia. We've been in the game of publishing conferences, reports, etc. But I think now this is going to be the next venture for us when it comes to the digital networking meeting, which we are right now paying a lot of attention to. So all of you can be sure to look forward to a lot of more value creation and delivery coming to the entire wind industry. All right. So I think now before we jump on to the entire webinar, hear the experts speak, and we take in a couple of calls, get some live question answers getting in. There are a couple of points I think which are very essential to set the tone right for today's discussion. So one of the recent articles which I was reading mentioned that there's been more than 70% of the investors, the software market, which is similar to wind and solar. I think that's a very interesting statistics and data point for us to understand. How do we look at the wind assets? Are wind assets equally stable as compared to other renewable assets? Could be solar or solar plus storage or EV, whatever. So I think, are they equally stable for us? That's another point I think which we will find out today. Now, when we talk about the wind asset optimization, I think we can broadly put it and summarize under 4 key points, which are very essential. So the first one, I think we start off with the entire analysis of how do you set up a turbine, which is the best position for maximum wind, etc. But that becomes the core, which covers a lot of element to a good asset in the making. The second one is, are wind farm owners really able to identify and reduce their uh, cost, and what are the best benchmark points for them to do so? The third, do we have the best asset management softwares out there, which removes the entire burden for a lot of asset managers instead of collating data or organizing them and moving on to analyzing and the real job which is on site. And finally, put it to the last final leg to this is, are we in a position to really assess the data that we get, right? So these four stand for the pillars when it comes to asset management and optimization. So, I'm going to be now bringing in our first presenter from Wood Mackenzie. But before I do that, I think it's essential if we can just get a quick feel of what the audience is right now, what industry do they belong to, what's the profile. So all our panelists will be better placed. I'm just going to run a quick a poll so you guys can let us know on this. So what part of industry do you work with? Right, about 60% have voted. Another 5-10 seconds, then I close the poll. Okay. So panelists, for your information, I'm just giving you a quick mix of the audience. We have about 31% of wind farm owners, a good mix from the OEM and IT side, services, consulting, others as well. Wonderful. So I think that sets the tone for us on this particular beginning for the webinar. Now, Daniel, I think the screen is all yours. Take control and let's have a wonderful presentation from you. Daniel, over to you.
Hi, Vipul. Thank you very much again. I will quickly bring up my presentation. And firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to the team for inviting me and Morgan Mackenzie at large to present on this market. So let me just quickly share my screen. Vipul, can you see the screen? Is it working?
Yes, I can see you now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so just a very quick presentation about who we are, what this topic is all about. So Wood Mackenzie, for those who don't know, is a market intelligence firm specializing in energy markets, and I lead the power and renewables team in operations and maintenance for both wind and solar. We have offices all across the globe, and we also provide both consultancy services as well as market intelligence in renewable energy. So the topic that I'm presenting is the role of digital technology for wind asset optimization. And essentially what I will be covering is where exactly are the cost savings to be had, or where exactly should the direction of digital technology need to go to reach the next stage of asset management evolution in wind turbine management. So to start off with, what I want to do set the scene was talking about what are the two key issues that we in Wood Mackenzie are seeing facing asset managers and driving digital technology adoption in wind asset management. So the first one is that, as we know across the world, very many markets are now adopting competitive auction tenders. More and more countries are now moving away from subsidy schemes and going towards bid pricing mechanisms, especially in Europe. Very quickly now in China, we saw the lowest prices ever occurring in China, and of course India as well. And this is essentially a quick chart on the left-hand side to show the various volumes of tenders awarded under competitive auction mechanisms in each particular market. And you can see on the left-hand side chart the bid price, global average bid price per year, and how quickly it is declining from the years 2009 to 2018. We expect that to be lower for 2019 and even lower again still for 2020 onwards. And what we see is that this is placing considerable pressures on asset managers to not just drive down their capex bids, but also their operational expenditure as well. The other key issue facing asset managers is that another key factor of operations and maintenance costs is or what we would term the unplanned corrective spend, which is everything that is not part of the scheduled maintenance costs. More succinctly, it is the costs related to repairing unexpected downtimes on turbines, as well as other minor repairs that occur during the operations of a turbine lifetime. On the left-hand side chart, you can see the total spend, and just to point out in context, on average across the world, 70% of an asset manager's operating costs are in unplanned repair. So that's including labor, equipment, and spare parts. So from 2019, we expected the market to spend across the world to be $8 billion. And that number is only going to rise by 2028, and it's going to be $14 billion. And to put that into context, you can see on the right-hand side chart, just what we see with the market is that unless digital technology is adopted overall, we do not see significant reductions in unplanned correctors as part of the overall budget in each particular region. So that context aside, going into digital technology for wind, we've been looking into this market for quite a while now, and this is our general assessment on the various classes of digital technology versus the payback for wind power applications. So the axis on the left-hand side, the vertical axis, is the simple payback term in terms of years, and the horizontal axis, or the x-axis, is the gross value delivered per turbine per year. This is of course, by no means a true picture of every single technology out there, but this is a general conglomerate view of all the technologies we've surveyed so far. And what we see is that considerably over time, all these digital technology classes are starting to shift towards the bottom right-hand side, which is the most attractive scenario for digital technology. So in other words, delivering greater gross value per year and shorter payback terms. And it's a function of digital technology being better utilized, as well as digital technology costs reducing over time. Of course, the most expensive technologies would be along the lines of enterprise resources planning for logistics and administrative costs, as well as machine learning technologies. We'll get into that more in the latter slides. So this is just a quick slide to talk about what asset management practices are and just how they are largely dictated by ownership classes. At the very bottom, you can see the legend of the different types of asset owners for wind. And ideally, what you would see is that utilities and utility-backed IPPs tend to be the most sophisticated in terms of their asset management practices. And small and institutional investors, rather, the yellow and the reds, are the least likely to be sophisticated in their asset management practices. Well, what does that mean for digital technology? Well, essentially, if we look at the different types of operational plan points or pain points for each different asset manager, these are the kind of strategy preferences that we see across the different classes. And what this means for digital technology is that the first three, community, institutional investors, and certain IPPs, they generally would prefer a digital solution, a proven digital solution from a backable partner as part of an overall service package. So in other words, a one-size-fits-all, a holistic package. On the other side, yieldcos, most large IPPs and utility-backed IPPs, what you would see is digital solutions being purchased on an as-needs basis. In other words, these asset owners will choose different digital solutions piecemeal to fit whatever asset strategy that they have. It's a different type of buying, but both classes generally prefer digital solutions as part of their ongoing forward-looking service strategy. So very quickly, this is a quick assessment on the digital product type that we've seen in terms of the kind of actions that are enabled along the asset management and operations value chain. So very quickly back it into maintenance and repair, operations and asset management. On the left-hand side, you can see the 6 or so different digital technology classes. certainly what we're seeing is the bottom three, conditioning, monitoring, diagnostics, and data analytics platform, have already been universally adopted by and large by many asset managers across the world. However, the top three are starting to see use, but they are, of course, requiring huge upfront digital infrastructure costs and upfront investment. And at the same time, use cases for many asset managers have not been quite there yet. In other words, there's a little bit of reticence to adopt even the most sophisticated technologies because they are not sure there's a proven use case yet. We'll get to that, what that means later on as part of the last slide. But very quickly, going in terms of digital technology deployment, this is just a summary of the previous slide, talking about where each different asset owner is looking to, or rather focusing their increasing efforts on. And what we can see is that utilities and utility-backed IPPs are definitely increasing digital focus across the entire value chain of the asset management practice. And certainly even small owners are looking to find cost savings in terms of condition monitoring and remote prognostics and alarm management. Finally, looking at the digital services vendors and their respective business models, what we're seeing is that increasingly the business models, or rather the remuneration for the service, for the digital vendors, is starting to form into these 4 different clusters. So what we can see is software as a service vendors are the most digitally mature, of course, with years and years of experience in other industries, but they are just breaking into the wind services market. So on the left-hand chart, you can see them in the top left corner, because they are the least wind services capable at the moment compared to the other different vendors. And what we generally see is that turbine OEMs seem to be the best place because they are both now digitally as mature as software as a service vendors, but have the extensive experience and strategic advantage of being service leaders in the space. These are various revenue models for the different types of vendors, and what we can see is that increasingly we're seeing a segmentation along the lines of software companies versus turbine OEMs, whereas software companies prefer to have some form of upfront cost. Turbine OEMs are more willing to share the operational risk of deploying digital technology, but in turn demand a more sophisticated form of revenue sharing, such as enhanced availability guarantees and profit sharing. And just finally, I wanted to finish off on this particular slide and saying that all these previous digital technologies and where we see this market going, there are still considerable barriers to digital technology deployment in the wind energy space for asset management. And what really the common theme is when we speak to all the key stakeholders in this space is that for digital technology to be further deployed and to reach the next stage of evolution for asset management, all the stakeholders need to have some kind of collaborative stakeholder engagement in terms of sharing risk. You can see on the outside circle the various kind of deployment risks, or the risks for utilizing digital technology for each of the stakeholders, and why there's a bit of reticence to progress further. And this is the common themes that we are seeing as we talk to each one of these 3 different stakeholders. So again, just pointing out that collaborative stakeholder engagement is the next stage between all 3 groups of parties to get to overcome the digital barriers to a digital adoption, so that everyone is able to equitably share the risks as well as the rewards from digital technology. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for the presentation. All right. So now, Daniel, a couple of quick points looking at what you just presented. Now, first, I'd like to get your take on the fact, in the complete profile of services that are currently being offered by the service providers or OEMs, where do you what do you see as a missing link for digitization? Where is the missing link, if there is any? If not, then I think you can address why or how do we move that up.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Could you repeat it again, please?
So I'm saying in the current profile of services that are being offered by the service providers and the OEMs, do you see a missing link uh, which is required for a digitization in terms of services that are being offered? Is there a missing link?
Yeah, actually, I do, and it's not so much in terms of service provider or the technology being deployed. Digital technology has been proven to be very useful in many different other industries. The problem with wind is that data and data sanitization is one of the key barriers to effectively deploy digital technology. And when we're talking about in terms of analytics, even access to historical records on a wind turbine and cleaning all the terabytes of data that comes up with it is a big problem. So data management definitely would be a key part of the equation when talking about future deployment of digital technology and their usability.
All right. Okay, get it. Now, Dan, in terms of the business model that you presented, the first thing I want to know is, do you think that a developer must focus on building in-house capabilities right now, or is it better left to a third-party O&M contract provider?
That's an interesting question, and it really does depend on the different strategies. It really also depends on the resources at hand to deploy those technologies, and it's a matter of a question of whether a developer can see themselves creating in-house digital technology and infrastructure far better than the kind of all-inclusive software that's being provided by both the OEMs and more specifically the new digital specialists that are coming out in the wind space. So again, it really is a matter of the size and resources capability, as well as the appetite to take on the digital risk by the asset owner.
All right. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up, and compile a couple of questions which I've got from the audience. One is, I think, by Mr. Deepak Prabhu, who would like to understand, firstly, if the digital platform adoption has accelerated because of COVID. That's number one. Number two, I think I'm going to add this from Mr. Savanan as well. What's the revenue increase after adoption of digital technology, and what is the payback time?
So to answer the first question on the COVID, the question, if I'm getting it correct, is does COVID or has COVID seen an increase or caused an increase in digital technology? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that is a very tricky question, and to be honest, COVID-19 has upset many different things in the industry. So it is a day-to-day basis, and this market, the COVID-19 changes things on a very rapid time frame. So it's hard to say whether it is true that digital technology adoption is increasing as a result of COVID. I will not say that. I will say that digital technology is now becoming more of a forefront because administrative costs in this time of crisis has certainly increased. We certainly have been seeing increased logistics demand as a result of the OH&S requirements, as well as supply chain requirements due to COVID-19 putting a damper on the kind of interactions that we used to have. So digital technology certainly can play a role in reducing administrative costs. One good example, of course, is enterprise resource planning. So while we may not see any new digital technology investments now, certainly it will be in the time frame, or the frame for discussion post COVID-19. That's the first question. The second question, if you could remind me again, was it business models, was it?
Yeah. So the second question focuses on what's, I would say, more on the lines of how much revenue increase can one expect by deploying a digital technology, and what's the payback time?
So I'll share my screen again just very quickly. just bring it back to here. So these are the general kind of paybacks, and in terms of revenue, it's really hard to say because we do not want to make a blanket assumption here. It is a case-by-case basis. And to give you some context as to why it's a case-by-case basis, in the United States, we know of quite a number of leading developers who just refuse to use digital solutions because they believe in their operational strategy and their operational experience. And it is hard to argue with them because they've tested it and we've seen the results, and it hasn't shown for them much adoption, much revenue boost. But others have, of course, loved this stuff. So they're seeing increased margins all the time. So I guess in long and short, it really does depend. We do a lot of consultancy engagements looking into this very specific question. So happy to chat more separately and privately if needed after this webinar.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to put up, get some insights from the audience first of all on how do they view the current performance of wind assets in terms of especially the wind assets in India. I'm going to put this up to the audience. I'll share these with all the panelists. So here it's on your screen. How would you rate the current performance of wind assets in India? Okay, I'm closing in 5 more seconds. So let's have quick votes. Okay, so the results are now shared. That's interesting. We have about 50% who believe that they are meeting the standards and 40% below standards. Okay, Daniel, I'll get your remarks on this, but I'll just be launching another one very quickly. So do you believe that COVID has helped us unlock a digital bright future for wind assets, or was it anyways bound to happen? Right, those are some interesting numbers. I think by the analysis of it, I would like to include that COVID has really helped the wind service providers. So here you have it on your screen. I think about more than half, about 3/4 of the audience believe that COVID definitely helps accelerate the digital transformation for wind assets. Okay. All right. So I think, Daniel, with this, thank you for the presentation. I hope you're okay with the fact that we'll also be sharing this with our audience on this, and I think our team will connect. But thanks, wonderful.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Okay. With this, I think we move on to our next speaker on the webinar, for which I'd like to invite Mr. Nikhilesh Ranjan Singh, who's the Managing Director at WindForce Management Services. Mr. Nikhilesh, welcome to the webinar. I think with the experience WindForce has had in advisory and consulting services, I think there's a lot that you can add to the current deployment of digital tools and optimization strategies for the wind plants. So over to you, Mr. Nikhilesh.
Yeah. Let me just pull up my screen. Can I get access to sharing my screen? I'm not finding that thing.
Yes, 1 second.
Yes, sir, you can share the screen now.
No, it's still showing your computer. Still it is asking, I don't have access to that. Yeah,
Eight.
I now got that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, organizer, for giving me this opportunity, giving us this opportunity to talk about briefly about wind asset management and optimization. That is the very, in fact, the environment where we are living, not only COVID, but before that also in the environment of the bidding and then the tariffs, what we are saying, this is becoming very essential for any project, either it's a wind or solar. So I'm briefly, the time limitation, what we are having this 10 minutes, I'm briefly trying to run through this thing. And as you all know that this presentation is going to be shared with all of you. So anytime further, if you have any question, please reach out to us. So basically, what is asset management? Asset management is the balancing of costs, opportunities, and risk against the desired performance of asset. To achieve organization objectives, this balancing must be considered over different timeframes. It is also enables an organization to examine the need for and performance of assets and asset system at different levels. Additionally, it enables the application of analytical approaches towards managing an asset over the different stages of life cycle. It's also art and science of making the right decision and optimizing the delivery of values. The common objective is to minimize the whole life cost of asset, but there may be other critical factors such as risk or business continue to be considered. The holistic asset management approach is technical side is don't just look at the data which are coming. Most of this data which are coming from SCADA and data mounting tools. Don't just look at the data, but also try to know what it means for the project. Data may be the first crucial step, but transforming data into information is the real art of asset management. Entire asset management is that the data, this data which we are now accessing through this tools, various tools which are available, which I'm going to talk in my subsequent slides. Those data were there earlier also. It's not some over the night we got hold of those data, but those data were available earlier also. But now we have feeling the necessity of using those data and putting them into the perspective. The financial aspect of the holistic asset management is it provides you, it get you the lowest life cycle costs. It quantify missed opportunity like the breakdowns and others. The key technical aspect, the more we understand about our asset, the more we understand the higher our confidence that our investment decisions are indeed the lowest life cycle cost strategies for sustained performance at a level of risk your organization is willing to accept. That means what is there to figure out what is their condition and remaining useful life, what are the risks and consequences of failures, what are the feasible renewal options like repair, refurbish, replace, and the cost of these options, and do we have a better monitoring system? How good is your monitoring system which you are deploying at your project? The financial aspect is that to achieve the lowest life cycle cost, that is the dream of any investor, we must understand how our assets are likely to fail, the failure mode, and which asset management processes and practices to deploy to appropriately manage those failure modes. And also the different components have different probabilities of failures as determined by ages, materials, and assembly process, operating environment, usage, and maintenance. The approach to reach our goal of proper optimization is, phase one is that asset status analysis, performance and availability review, how it is showing up from the data which is coming from your project, performance and cost benchmark, asset conditioning and remaining life assessment, and the baseline marking. The baseline marking is very important for any projects that will give you a visibility out about once you have a set baseline for each component of the project or your turbine or your project, you will know what is the standard to see the performance of those components. The technical assessment is optimization or upgrade. The phase two of this is the optimization upgrade. Feasible technical options, definitions, and identification. And third is validity and implementation of holistic cost benefit analysis based on how much in the further investment is required. and then technical options implementation. Asset management addresses the inherent power problem in O&M. We have, this is what is thrown also by Daniel in his presentation previous slide, that how big this is throwing up the issues there. For wind and solar, there is something which are beyond our control. That is this coming from resources, the weather, how good is the weather, that is not in our control, so we can't do anything there. Second part which come for any project is machine availability, plant availability. Usually in India, we have seen the warranted this guarantee of over 95% availability, but this is I'll talk a bit more about this. Is not very much this is helpful, but not very much helpful. But this can be along with 95%. If we have a machine, each component working with the best of efficiency, then we are in 95% itself. We'll see a lots of improvement. The grid availability, that is machine efficiency, and normally these are not guaranteed by OEMs. These parameters are assessed, analyzed, and corrected with resource data by proper analytical platform. The analysis report records recommendation of optimization for max energy generation and long-term protection of machine health. So this all overall influence the plant availability, plant productivity. Moving to the next slide. We discussed about that. There's the various tools, the analytical tool which are available out there. And this asset management platform offers interactive visualization of your renewable energy assets, help you gain key insight of the data recorded from the asset. Sitting in your remote places, particularly in the COVID environment, when you don't have the possibility of visiting the site, you can, sitting in your place, you can figure out how the turbine, each component is working on. So if you have better monitoring platform, better monitoring tool, you can see the entire the behavior of entire component of your turbine. But that depends on how good is your analytical platform. Asset runs efficiently and safely using any highly sophisticated data. This will keep you completely updated with live access to on-site information through a web link. And it also helps in monitoring for efficiency. A step for efficient asset management, it make effective use of SCADA, what is there. And if we are able to condition in monitoring for making proper decision, this will help you in lower breakdown, lower shutdowns, identify right team in-house team for third party who can provide you that job, understand the contributing factors to wind turbine performance in order to recommend cost-effective intervention for higher annual energy of production. Always review and challenge costs related to unplanned services interventions, such as any other thing which Daniel has mentioned, that about 70% of the annual cost goes towards the unplanned maintenance. So this is with proper preventive cares, you will be able to proper visibility of those components. Each component you will be able to overcome some way these issues, minimize these issues. For measure works such as gear possibility, build a relationship with more service provider, optimize spare part by holding long-term leads, and these are the other thing which you there. So there's lots of benefit of asset management. Assemble the right team is discuss. Each asset owner may have different long-term objective, but they share the common goal of an asset that produce the most value at the lowest cost. That is the entire motto of any investor, any project developer. This all proper utilization of your resources, you will be able to increase the ROI and decrease the turnaround time, better life cycle of your turbine projects. And intelligent and proactive asset management is key to maximizing asset performance. This is a brief of services of WindForce. I'm not going to run through, but these are there in the presentation. And if you wanted any more information about that, you can reach out to that, how it is further can be done. So this is all from my side. Global.
Thank you, Nikhilesh, for the presentation. All right. So I've seen a lot of questions coming in from people, and then I can guarantee you that I'm going to be representing you and putting up all these questions, the hard questions to our panelists. I'm just going to acknowledge some of the names. I think from Trevit I have received, Dilip, from Mr. Ravindran I have received. So there are a lot of questions that I'm getting on wind solar being complementary, or what is the final impact on of digital on the LCOE. All of these questions are going to be answered in our panel discussion, and also be involving some of our presenters right now to address these questions. But before I do that, we'll have a final presentation for this webinar by Mr. Rajnikant. Rajni's been an old hand in the wind sector. He's probably seen the wind sector in and out, interacted with a lot of IPPs and stakeholders. I'm sure his perspective, first of all, on how he sees the digitization and asset optimization, and also combining it with what Vaisala has to offer right now to a lot of stakeholders. So Rajni, I think we can have you now, and you can begin with your presentation.
Thanks, Vipul. Yeah, so I can share my screen.
By the way, I really like your backdrop. I'm not sure if you're actually right where.
I'm actually there. Actually, I'm in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sitting at home. It's just a virtual background.
Yeah.
Just a virtual background. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Give me a second. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Sure, I will go with that.
Yeah.
Probably I'll try and stop my video because of the bandwidth issue and start. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you once again, and good afternoon, everyone. So thanks for taking the time to join this brief session on LiDAR technology. And today I'll be talking help optimize the performance of your wind assets with the LiDAR technology. For people who don't know me, my name is Rajnikant, and I'm heading the Vaisala weather business in India, and have been working with the Indian renewable energy industry for slightly more than 13 years now. Moving on to the next slide. Talking a little bit about my company, Vaisala is a global leader in weather observations and weather measurements. So Vaisala manufactures a wide range of products, starting from a small sensor that can measure temperature and humidity to large weather stations that are installed in airports and various other applications, to manufacturing weather radars that are used by meteorological departments all over the world. So Vaisala acquired a company. It was acquired by Vaisala in 2018, and Leosphere has been the global leader in manufacturing and offering LiDAR-based wind measurement solutions globally. So as part of this acquisition, now Vaisala got a portfolio of LiDAR-based wind measurement products that you see on the screen. So there are basically 4 products. The first one is the WindCube, which is a vertical profiler LiDAR, which has a measurement range starting from 40 meters to 200 meters plus, and it can offer measurements at 12 different heights. So basically, the WindCube can essentially work as a 200-meter met mast for wind measurements in a wind farm. Be it a greenfield development or be it an operational wind farm, you can use a WindCube as a 200-meter met mast with 12 different measurement heights. So today we have almost close to 1,000 WindCubes that are at onshore and offshore wind farms all over the world. Then the second product is the WindCube Scan, which offers a much longer range of 3 kilometers, 6 kilometers, and 10 kilometers. There are different models, 3 different models, and each model has a range of 3, 6 and 10 kilometers. It can give you 320 range gates, which means it can offer you measurements at 320 different points. And it also has the ability to perform a complete hemispherical scan of the wind profile. So this product is used in the wind energy industry, both for onshore and offshore wind measurements, but also used in various other applications like meteorology, air quality studies, and also in the extensively in the aviation industry, in airports kind of applications. But today our focus will be more on this product, which I have highlighted, which is the WindCube nacelle. Nacelle-mounted LiDAR with a range of 450 meters with 10 range gates, which can be defined by the users. We also have another version of the turbine-mounted LiDAR, which is the Wind Iris turbine control, which is a feed-forward turbine control LiDAR. But I'm not going to talk much about that because that's specifically a product that we sell only to the wind turbine OEMs because it needs extensive work to integrate these into the turbine control mechanism of the wind turbines. So the focus today in my presentation is going to be on the WindCube nacelle, the one that is highlighted in my slide. Moving on. So WindCube nacelle is just one product, but it can be used for various applications, primarily to verify and to optimize the wind farm performance. The WindCube nacelle is being extensively used in offshore wind farms for performing contractual power curve test. Because we all know that doing a power curve test offshore with a met mast that complies with the IEC 61400-12-1 standard can be exorbitantly expensive, costly, and also time consuming. Putting a 150-meter met mast offshore could cost millions of dollars. So this nacelle mounted LiDARs are being accepted as an alternative for doing a contractual power curve test for offshore projects. And based on the experience with offshore projects, we are also seeing now increasingly that the nacelle LiDAR is being used for onshore projects also to conduct power curve tests. But a caveat here is that the IEC standard still does not allow nacelle-mounted LiDARs as an option for conducting the power curve test. But same is the case with offshore also, where the standard still does not, the IEC standard does not allow nacelle-mounted LiDARs. But for a lack of any other viable option, it is being accepted as an industry practice, and we expect that will happen with onshore wind farms also in the near future. Apart from power curve test, various other applications where you can use the WindCube nacelle. One of them is yaw misalignment correction, which helps to increase the energy production from wind turbines by aligning the turbine more accurately in the direction of the wind. Then we can also use it for doing the more accurate estimation of or characterization of the nacelle transfer function for nacelle-mounted anemometers, which can improve the value of your SCADA monitoring. Then there are many other advanced applications where the WindCube nacelle can be used, like site calibration for complex sites. So a lot of turbine OEMs today are also using the WindCube nacelle for doing the fatigue and extreme load calculation, which helps them to reduce the amount of material that goes into manufacturing a turbine, thereby helping them to optimize the large wind farm operators are using the same LiDAR now for wind sector management. And they're also using the LiDAR for doing wake analysis, in a crowded and large size wind farms. And then we also, I also mentioned briefly about the Wind Iris turbine control, which is a specific product, which is a feed-forward turbine control, which is sold to the OEM to help control the turbine using a feed-forward turbine control mechanism. So these are the various applications where the WindCube nacelle can be used by a wind farm owner or operator. But again, given the limited time that we have, I will just focus on this one application, which is a power curve measurements using nacelle LiDARs. So what we bring to you is, until now, Vaisala has been offering only the hardware, which is the WindCube nacelle-mounted LiDAR. But now, I say now, very recently, as recent as past few weeks, we also launched a software which would help the wind farm owners and operators to conduct power curve tests and data analysis themselves at a click of a button. So doing a power curve test is made much easier now with the combination of the hardware and the software that comes from Vaisala, the WindCube Nacelle and the WindCube Insight put together. So both these, the hardware and the software work together seamlessly and help you to integrate and analyze the LiDAR and turbine data and to do power curve tests across your wind farm, one turbine at a time, turbine by turbine. So when you talk about power curve test, we mostly think about the contractual power curve test, which is done, like after 1 year after the plant is commissioned, where you test one turbine out of a few hundred turbines, which may not be fully representative of the wind farm. So one of the thoughts that we have is indicative power curve test on a larger population of turbine, not just one turbine, but you can do it on many turbines across the wind farm. We know, I also know and understand that the Nacelle LiDAR might not be immediately accepted in the market for contractual power curve test in India. But the day this technology will find a place in the IEC standard as an alternate option for MetMask is not far away. However, in the meanwhile, one thing we want to change with this LiDAR technology is to help the large independent power producers, IPPs, to not limit themselves to the contractual power curve test, but to provide them with the necessary tool to conduct indicative power curve test on a large number of turbines in each wind farm over a period of time. It's very easy to install these nacelle-mounted LiDARs, and it's much faster to collect data, which actually enables multiple power curve tests to be complete. With IPPs getting bigger and having a strong leverage with the OEMs in India, as is the case with many other mature markets, we believe that the practice of doing indicative power curve test on an ongoing basis will become a part of the O&M function itself. So, like do you have an underperforming turbine in your wind farm? Then just mount a WindCube Nacelle LiDAR on the turbine and you're ready to do a power curve test. It may not be fully IEC compliant, but the results can still give you very useful insights. As a IPP, it will give you very useful insights into the performance of the turbine. And, you can then decide on what could be potentially wrong with the turbine and could lead to more detailed root cause analysis. So that's the whole point of using a nacelle-mounted LiDAR for doing indicative power curve tests. Talking about the product itself, the WindCube Nacelle, it's a LiDAR product which has been in the market for almost a decade now, though it has gone through a lot of improvements over time, but the product itself has been in the market for almost a decade. And it's compatible with all type of wind turbines. So we have installed and successfully operated these LiDARs across turbines from major global OEMs. Name them, our machines have worked on all those turbines. Very simple to install. It takes less than half a day to install a turbine, and then to install a nacelle-mounted LiDAR on a turbine and to start measurements. 4 to 5 hours is what it's needed. It's very lightweight and compact compared to the other similar products available in the market, and it's very straightforward to configure. So easy to install and to start measuring. In terms of the software, the WindCube Insight is also a very easy to use cloud-based tool. So being a cloud-based tool, it does not need to be installed on any hardware. You can always use a login ID and a password, and you can log in from any credentials. The whole software is built based on the current IEC standards. It's very much in compliance with all the IEC requirements. And it also has the ability to integrate both the LiDAR and the turbine SCADA data, and also enables easy time synchronization, which basically simplifies generating a power performance test report from doing a manual analysis, which can take 2 weeks, to a very easy way where it can be done in a couple of clicks on the software. And the software is capable of doing power performance test calculations. It can display all the data in the format that you need to see. It also filters all the data as per the requirement. Then it also does the calculation of the uncertainties as per the IEC standards. So as a combination, WindCube Nacelle and WindCube Insights makes conducting a power curve test very easy and quicker and faster. Screenshots from the WindCube Insights software, where you can see that it has the ability to load and synchronize the data coming from the LiDAR and from the turbine SCADA data. it's pretty easy to do this, compared to the manual process. And also the industry standards, IEC standards have been applied when it comes to filtering the data and also in displaying the power curve for a given turbine which is being tested. And all the AEP calculation can be done per wind speed bin. And also you can see that even the uncertainties are calculated following the requirements of the IEC standard. So these are just a few screenshots, but if anybody is interested in having a live demo of this software, you could feel free to approach me. I'll be happy to offer you a live demo of the entire software. I think that's all the time I have. So with that, I will end my presentation, and we will be available for answering any questions that you might have. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the time to present the LiDAR product. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rajni, for this insightful display on the LiDAR technology. Now, a couple of the first question that comes, is first of all, can LiDAR help in instant turbulence impact? Rajni, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. The question was, can LiDAR help in
the instant of turbulence impact?
Definitely, yes. So, with a range of 450 meters plus, like I mentioned in my presentation, the LiDAR has been used by the OEMs to reduce the mechanical loads, which in turn helps them to reduce the amount of material that goes into, and thereby leading to cost optimization. So yes, the answer to that is yes. The short answer is yes, but I can also give you a much broader explanation, either through email, or if somebody wants to contact me, you can have a further discussion on it.
Okay.
But the short answer is yes.
Yeah. All right. So I have Abhishek Jain from the audience who wants to know, first of all, does the WindCube meet all the IEC specification for the power curve test?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, today the IEC standard 61400-12-1 allows the use of a vertical profiler in IEC certified power curve test, as long as it's used with co-located metmast. A nacelle mounted LiDAR is still not included in the IEC standard as an option for doing a guaranteed power curve test. But when there's a lack of other options, for example, in offshore, it's to do the power curve test as per the IEC standard. So the industry practice is to use a nacelle-mounted LiDAR to do a warranted power curve, to do a contractual power curve. So it all depends on the application. But yeah, as per the standard today for IEC, a nacelle-mounted LiDAR is not one of the options to do a contractual power curve. But does not stop you from doing indicative power curves yourself. Okay.
All right. Now, two more questions. One, I think, is from Sachin, and the second one is from Karthik. I think they both want to know something similar. First of all, what's the revenue increase with the LiDAR? That's number one. And how much annual production can increase by installing a WindCube LiDAR?
Yeah, that's a good question, but the answer, depends. The answer is it depends. It could be very different from a wind farm to a wind farm, or from a type of turbine to another turbine. But just if I have to give you a range, then it can be anywhere between 2 to 10% is what we have seen based on our experience so far. Okay. In terms of AEP increase.
All right.
Revenue again can be very different for different markets where the tariffs are different and all that. So I don't want to get into the revenue part of it, but in terms of fuel, in terms of AEP, we have seen increases ranging from 2 to 10%, depending on the conditions.
Okay. Now, Rajni, just to get a more broader, industry perspective from you. First of all, do you see a gap in the digital skill sets, especially in organizations and the wind sector? When we talk about digitization or asset optimization, do you see a lack of digital skill set?
Is that question to me?
Yes, Rajni, to you.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is yes. Definitely, there is a lot more that we can do in terms of digitalization of the wind energy industry. I think a lot of act already happening, but there is still a lot of scope, where we can expand that even further. To answer your question, yes, there is definitely more scope for improvement.
Okay. All right. So I think on that note, what we'll do is we'll quickly move on to the next session. Rajni, I think if you're available, I'd like to have you in the next panel also. Maybe you can just add a couple of points. All right. So I think
I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. Yes, I'll be here.
Okay. Because I do have some questions which are unanswered, and I'll put them up to you. But I think with the limitation of time, it's best if we can. All right. So I think can I request all my the panelists for the next session to kindly come on screen and so that the audiences can see you. Because I think we have a lot to discuss and talk about. All right. Welcome, Mr. Rajendran. All right, great. Mr. Dinesh, Mr. Sanjay, Mr. Venkata. All right, I think wonderful. So we're all here. Now, my first question, I'm going to put it up to Dinesh, to you. Hi. So you just unmute yourself so we can hear you. Yeah, can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Hello to everyone.
Hello. All right. So, the first question that I want to first, one of the burning discussion points here is wind and solar. A lot of investors have their assets in wind and solar both. First of all, do you see right now hybrid models picking up in terms, you have your foot in both wind and solar as well. So first of all, in terms of asset stabilization from a company's point of view, are these the best business models for an IPP going forward?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This hybrid concept, we as a country have been trying to explore it with a very limited success, because basically the policies towards lands and other thing. As we know, solar need a large number of land, per given megawatt compared to the wind. And the land has been a little sticky issue across the industry, across states. Plus, there is no enough clarity on the commercial part in the hybrid tariff. Because when you go for a certain proportion of solar or wind, whatever possible, there is not enough clarity. So maybe yes, some pilot level hybrid has started, but I don't foresee immediately it will move up so fast, because plus the resource is diverse, right? Some sites are windy site, not necessarily good for solar, and vice versa, the solar side not so windy for the wind turbines.
Okay. All right. Now, Venkata, I'd like to bring you in on this one now.
Hi, Vipul.
So I think not if I'm not wrong, Europus is also under a group company of Vestas, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
So first, I think if you could just quickly take a minute or so and just introduce what Europus does, and then I think we can build on with you.
Right. Thanks, Vipul and Insider for inviting us to the webinar. It's good to be part of this panel with all the industry veterans and colleagues. So Europus Insights is actually an independent company. We're 100% owned by Vestas, but we operate as an independent company developing asset management software and solutions for both wind and solar. So we cater into the market to support Vestas for their own service initiative. We also work with independent power producers or utilities in helping them, resolve their pain points in how they operate that turbines, or increase their asset performance, or increase their revenue through software solutions.
Okay. All right. So, Venkat, the first question now to you is, with a lot of competitive bidding going on, first of all, for an IPP, they have three options. One is they build in an inbuilt O&M service. Second is they hire a technology partner by using machine learning or AI, and third is to completely outsource an O&M. So first of all, what's your point of view on considering you interact with a lot of IPPs, you know their pain points. How do you look at this and a more desired solution?
So I think Daniel, you beautifully put up, right? The whole industry is moving towards digital. But digital transformation is a journey. It is not something that you start doing it today and you'll start looking at the results right away. It's a journey. It's also a discipline for people who are handling operation maintenance to collect the data the right way, and then start utilizing smart application which can really resolve their pain points. It's not about off-the-shelf product. It's also creating a solution or a product that can address the pain points in the industry today. Right, the whole digital journey has gone towards from a basic monitoring and reporting towards more innovative solutions like how can I use digital for asset performance or increase my revenue or do some innovative work like YAML alignment and stuff like that. So when you move towards that, right, there are a lot of things that IPPs can derive out of it in terms of increasing the revenue or increasing the operational efficiency of how they operate their own wind or solar power plants. So it's all about a collaboration between a product company like ours, an IPP and an OEM, because to create a revenue out of any digital solution, it's also, how are you going to take the results coming out of the digital solution, the IPP talking to an OEM to get it resolved, right? End of the day, if we find a problem in a turbine and if it doesn't get resolved, right, you are not going to get the revenue out of it as well. So it's a mix of how we collaborate among all the three stakeholders. That is when you see a real success emerging out of digital transformation and digitalization as a whole.
All right. Okay. Now, Sanjay, I'll bring you in now on this one. Now, Renew Power, holds the maximum assets in India, both wind and solar, probably one of the largest IPPs that we've seen. Now, the first question, I'd like to understand from you is, how do you, look at an O&M contract now from Renew's perspective, or let's say if you could give a larger perspective from IPPs, what's the, how do you finalize or what is your approach to shortlisting a vendor, first of all, and giving their services?
Yeah, thanks a lot to have me on panel, right? It's good to interact with all. Yeah, coming back to your question, of course, if you see the wind industry journey, basically, so there were times where contracts were especially driven by OEMs because it was like OEM-driven market. And then latter part, IPP came into picture, right, last 8 to 10 years. And then entire renewable industry, wind industry took a different shape altogether. So of course, as far as contracts are concerned, still contracts are driven by old methods of measurements, evaluating the wind farms, turbines, right, entire asset. So basically, these are the like availability-based contracts. Those were basically driving the industry. But then IPP as IPP 2 core, they are more value addition to the entire process, entire value chain. There are more knowledge in the industry with various aspects coming into play, right? So basically, now to specific to Renew, basically, we are looking beyond like availability-based contracts, basically, right? So it is productivity-based contracts, what we are striving for. Still, we are yet to reach there, right? But then it is like measuring what value we are losing in the entire process, rather than seeing what is there already, right? So finding the gap, what is not there, what is not seen there, and then addressing that gap to whatever contractual ways. And that is the way forward. Like for example, it is measurement like production-based availability. So there you target basically what is the revenue loss you are going to incur during entire process. And then talking to OEM, of course, OEM has got their own way of seeing the things. And then again, it is like question of ownership and giving the service, because OEM is bound to give services up to certain point, right? And beyond that, again, it is asset or owner's call, right? And that is nowhere covered in the contract. So it is a mix of play between owner scope, asset scope, and then OEM scope. And there may be other stakeholder involved in the process. So it is like collaboration, right? And finding the right value for everybody. And the final objective is to get the maximum yield from the wind farm. I think that is the way forward. But yes, we are still yet to reach that point.
Okay. All right, Dinesh, I think I'll bring you in again on now. What we look at is, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these kind of technologies, they require for an IPP to work very openly and honestly with the service provider, because there's a lot of openness on data which is required, and unless and until there's complete trust between this. Now, to an extent, IPPs have always been a bit hesitant about sharing this kind of data, which does not allow or give the freedom to these solution providers to work. Now, I'd like to get your viewpoint first of all. How are IPPs working towards this, and are they ready to be in a position to do what is needed?
Thank you. So as far as data sharing, there is a lot has been changed over a period. Even from OEM perspective, also earlier the data sharing was a limited window. Now there is a transparency is coming up now with the OEM, reputed OEMs also. And to the APP specifics, they have been always willing to share whichever is required to bring the wind farm excellence. And nowadays, most of the IPP, either they have deployed their analytical solution, which is online and given by the world-class solution. So data sharing is happening from IPP 100% with those who are coming up with the technology, and which helps IPP to excel the performance. So I think data transparency, I don't think anybody has a concern now. They do it systematically and with the proper NDA, but 100% data sharing is happening today. I can see across the IPPs.
Okay. Now, if you were to measure, the cost of digital transformation versus yield for your assets, what would be, if you had to give some, stats or numbers on this, how would you measure how digital transformation can increase the yield?
See, digital transformation, as my friend Venkat said, it's a journey. So you have to start with the basic tools, right? At least the first and foremost thing is to monitor. You should have a good platform which gives you 100% visibility monitoring, right? So there is a basic minimum step. You know upfront, if the turbine dies, I get SMS, okay? Even at my level. So visibility improves the performance. At least it keeps the team alert, yes, something need to be fixed. And they get real time. If I share my experience in spring, we have rolled out a analytical solution. The moment turbine trips, across the team, all members gets the alarm. So that's the one level which goes. Then the second level is if the turbine is not run, if it is running, is it going as per the wind? I mean, it is able to generate to the pertinent wind. So that's required a little more closer collaboration in terms of understanding. So people do have a round the clock control room where real-time monitoring is happening. And because the tools are coming so powerful, if somebody wants to see what happened in last 6 hour power curve, it just click away. So with these tools, I'm sure people are reaping the benefit, and digital is not something optional. I do remember when I came from the conventional field, the SCADA was in very primitive stage. I'm talking somewhere around 2010. And people will say, okay, wind farm, let us commission the wind farm, SCADA will also come. So what I'm trying to convey, there was a period when SCADA was considered over and above turbine, but now it's people all do understand it's an integral part. So from the very day one, people do have a connectivity. So for example, our first wind farm came in December. We had an online connectivity in December itself, and we rolled out the analytics solution. For the future wind farm, it will be from day one. So digital definitely helps, and that's the way forward. Of course, now wind farms are much bigger than what we used to conventionally have, 50, 60, 100 megawatt. Now it comes in 200, 300 megawatts. So data chunk is much more than what it used to. Plus now people go for the higher analytics in terms of high-speed analytics is further demand the more data. But it definitely helps to improve the performance.
All right. Now I'll bring in Mr. Rajendran on this from Siemens Gamesa. Hi, welcome first of all.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. All right. Now, what I want to understand from a turbine manufacturer's perspective is, for an IPP, the question that, just like how we see the solar industry, first of all, we've seen a transition of independent, let's say EPC or panel manufacturers moving on to a complete comprehensive solution providers. Now, what this brings out is if an IPP, if they go for a robust O&M contract in the first place, are there needs for them to, hire another asset management software or look at a technology partner? Because for them, that O&M has to cover everything. Now, from a turbine manufacturer's perspective, first, how do you look at, the growing role or making it a comprehensive solution for the IPPs by collaborating or tying up with partners and presenting themselves, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is a final end-to-end solution. So is it something which right now, companies are looking at?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. It all depends on the appetite what the IPP has, right? Some IPPs are okay having a very comprehensive contract with the OEMs. For some IPPs, their priorities are different, right? Basically, today, if you have a comprehensive contract with the OEM, most of the risks have been covered, and that has been how the traditionally the market has been. And still it holds good, right? To a large extent, the OEMs take the responsibility of all the risk, and they provide the services. But what is happening is now of late, because of the changing scenarios, two things are happening. One, IPP feels that giving a very full comprehensive contract to the OEM, they don't have complete control over their assets. That is one. And second is they still feel that though the OEMs are delivering higher availabilities of 99 in most of the cases, still they feel that the response time can be improved, right? So as an asset owner, yes, they are right on their part. They feel so. But OEMs also understand, right? They are also changing according to the trends in the market. The auctions have brought down the prices. The OEMs now can take a risk to a certain extent, right? After that, the risk remains open. It's a question of discussion whether OEM should take or the IPP should take. Comparing all the other markets in the world over, right? Still, if you see the OEMs prices, what the OEMs offer to the market in India is low, and the amount of risk which the OEM covers is also high compared to all other regions in the world, right? So now, if IPP still feels that yes, it is not sufficient and other things, then as a OEM, we are very flexible, right? We are very flexible. Only thing is we need to clearly understand what is that they want, what is the scope, and what are the deliverables. And accordingly, the contracts can be customized or tailor-made to meet the requirements of the IPPs.
All right. Okay. Now, this I'll take in a quick point of view from both Dinesh ji and Sanjay ji on this. First of all, there are two different points. One is enhanced engineering services at site, and second is asset optimization. But what is happening is we're seeing an interlink of both of them, or a replacement of both of them on site. So when do you decide that I want to go for asset optimization versus I just need enhanced engineering? Number two, do you give any importance to the size of portfolios that you have when you talk about deploying digitization? And third question, which I just like a perspective, do you think all assets need asset optimization, Ram?
Yeah, let me take one by one. The first was about engineering upgradation versus asset optimization, right? So basically, it depends on the fleet age, right? If something is commissioned in, say, 2020, you don't really focus too much on the technology part, because usually OEMs are also upgrading their turbine technology as the time passes. So initially, yes, I don't think there is any dilemma. But yes, after 5 years, 6 years, yes, because there are a lot of changes in the equipments available, especially the measurement and other things. Then there is a case, and obviously it will be taken call jointly with the OEMs, because it's not only fitman, but how helpful it will be and what will be the cost benefit analysis, right? I think I missed the presentation from Rajnikant, but LiDAR is one of the things, right? If somebody wants to upgrade to NSL LiDAR, I mean, how it works, how effectively it can be integrated with the OEM SCADA. Until unless those things are clear, typically this will go as a backbencher. I mean, you can't immediately implement it, right? So it is on case-to-case basis, and especially on the technology front, which OEM has upgraded their own sensors. And if something comes up, usually OEMs, they come up with their plan where they offer some value to the IPP and they collaborate on case-to-case basis and try to implement it. Sorry, I missed, I don't remember. What was the second question?
The second question was in terms of the number of assets that you own. Do you look at digitization only if you have a larger portfolio at hand, or is even if a smaller IPP which does not exist, but do you give any importance to the size of your portfolio when you talk about asset optimization?
Okay. Yeah, it's also a dilemma, right? What you invest in, what you get. But my experience earlier in my organization, where we had a small wind farms, typically 50, 60, we had a 10 wind farms totaling 567, right? Now, as the time passes in the bidding regions, we have a 3 wind farm totaling 800. So it is always easy to implement for a larger platform, obviously, because you have a lot of leverage in terms of cost, in terms of uniformity, because there are only 3 OEMs and you have a 800 megawatt coming through one analytical platforms. But I have seen with the smaller wind farm also, because those times the tariffs were higher, hence the impact on the returns were much more compared to what we have now, right? So even the smaller wind farm, say with 5 rupees tariff is there, then it makes sense. Because ultimately it's the top line which matters, right?
Okay. All right. Sanjay ji, I'd like to get your point of view also on this.
Yeah, sure. So in Renew, basically, we never faced this issue of the size of portfolio. We got a big portfolio of almost 3.5 gigawatt of wind in operation and additional pipelines. So of course, but at the same time, it poses a lot of challenges. But I agree, as far as digital journey is concerned, right? Somebody can always go with that, because it is not a independent activity per se, because it has to be integrated with your existing setup. And finally, objective is to derive maximum yield or enhance the reliability of your wind farm. So I think that question doesn't come. There are pros and cons, basically. Of course, with smaller wind farm, always you can do the experimentation, right, with specific solution, whether that gives value to you. Other way, if you got the bigger portfolio with multiple OEMs, every OEM has got his own technologies, right, and different software, different algorithm altogether. So it poses even bigger challenge, right, to fit one solution across fleet, right? And then finally, you don't have much choice, right? And as far as Renew is concerned, we have seen a lot of ready-made softwares over the period called implement a digital journey, right? But then finally, it was like conscious decision to go with in-house development, right? And of course, OEM has got their own SCADA, and they also got their own digital ways of looking at the things, right? So finally, it is like basically integration of the best available in the market, be it OEM, be it ready-made solution, and then in-house development. Because again, I think a panelist, somebody told it is basically journey, right? We are yet to reach there. But then it makes sense, right? As far as Renew concerned, that was the call we took, right? And then integration, developing, and it is like day-to-day learning on that, getting first visibility, getting connectivity, getting real-time data at our central location, right, and getting entire picture view of the wind farm and asset, what is happening there. That is immediate requirement, and then building all the algorithm on those, right, finding the gaps and developing the further analytics on that. So that is way forward journey. So of course, it is individual call, basically how they want to go, but it is mandatory. There's no choice basically in this aspect.
Okay. All right. I'll bring in Mr. Rajiv Samant now. Mr. Samant, hi, I hope you can hear me. Okay. All right. So I think we've lost. Anyways, okay. Now, Venkata, one quick, take from you on this. If IPPs start to invest or build and operate their own plants, first of all, what I want to understand is in your interactions with the IPPs till date, have you ever seen a requirement for increased understanding of what we are selling, where you talk about value creation? Has there ever been a point where you've seen that the value creation is not very well understood on what we are talking about, and a traditional approach to investment and return is being followed?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vipul. Thanks for asking. I think a lot of questions are going on in the chat section as well on the return of investment, on how digital can help, right? As I said, right, it's a collaborative activity between the digital solution providers like Utopus and the IPP and the OEM. Because what we do from the solution perspective is that when we develop a product, we work with the customers to understand the pain point and then create a solution that's going to really help them in resolving the pain point. And when we do that, the use cases, it depends on how the user really uses the tool. And when they use a tool and then get a benefit out of it, how are they going to work with their service provider, right? Be it like Vestas or Siemens Gamesa or Acciona, to resolve the underlying problem that they've identified using the solution. If this particular loop is not closed, right, it doesn't really matter how good the tool is, you will not be able to see the revenue. So the bottom point is not what the digital solution is going to offer. It's very important for a solution provider like us to address the customer pain point, which we continuously do. But end of the day, the user has to know how to use the tool. The user has to be smart enough to understand how do they engage with a service provider to take an actionable insights to solve the problem, so that they can see the revenue increase or operational efficiency increase. And it's a collaborative activity, among all the stakeholders involved. Where data democracy, sharing the insights, sharing the domain, all this forms a part and parcel of the whole digital journey.
All right.
Just will add here. I fully adore with what it says. Yes, the tool is as good as how you use it. Value creation will comes from the effective implementation of the tool. Tool may be fantastic, right? But how effectively you use it and how effectively you collaborated with the OEMs, then the results comes, and then it creates a value. Value creation happens.
Absolutely. So I think that's to summarize. I think what for audience, I think digitization is not about tools anymore. It's finally about the values which comes to the assets, right? Okay. Now I'm going to bring Rudraksh in from Veena Energy. Rudraksh, hi, welcome. Rudresha, sorry, my bad.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon to all.
Now, Rudresha, what are your top three focus areas when you talk about asset optimization? What do you look at in an asset that you want to go ahead, and these are your top three focus areas?
So when it comes to Veena Energy, if we talk about top three asset optimization, having a portfolio which has got about 5 to 6 years of operational age, for me today is to how do I ensure the sustainability of the availability that I have today for the next 5 years going down the line. So that would be my top priority. So mean to say, what would be the immediate fault that would come up in a turbine? What is the present health of the component inside the turbine? And how do I either improve or maintain that health for the next 5 years? So this would be one of the points. The second is, of course, with the historic data that I have, I would make a benchmark and say, I am performing at a certain level. So what is the easiest component? It could be at a component inside a turbine, or it could be something on the internal transmission lines, or even on the external transmission line. What would be a change that I would need today to ensure that I can yield that extra energy So it means to say that how do I improve my production or the production maximization that would come in. And the third part is, so I mean, basically these are the two things that we look at. One is the life enhancement, I would say, the life extension thing. The second thing is about the production improvement as the asset optimizations approach.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Rajendran, I would like your, first of all, if you have to give a number, let's say in next 2 years, what percentage of wind assets do you see moving towards digitization? Also, are you looking at it they being completely digitized, or are you looking at a partial digitization?
Now the digitalization plays a very, very important role. Even if you take the case of COVID, right? COVID for the past 60 days, I would say, we had to take a lot of decisions because we are not able to do the normal operations as we have been doing before. And we had to take a decision whether to do a maintenance or not to do a maintenance. So a lot of critical such decisions we had to take, and digitalization has really helped us, right? Despite this lockdown, we have been able to keep at least 99.5% of our turbines running. So thanks to digital initiatives which we have taken. And going forward, yes, if you ask me in terms of percentage, what is going to be the next 2 years, I would say at least what we are working towards is about 80% of our assets or 80% of our process we want to digitalize.
That's a very optimistic and nice, aggressive figure, right? I see a smile on Venkat also with these figures. Now, Venkat, does Utopus also have the similar services when it comes to solar IPPs?
Yes, we do. I think we, even though we are part of Vestas, we take renewable energy as one part where we support both wind and solar, and we are also working towards how we can come into the hybrid solution part as well. So
have you seen a more proactive approach coming in from the solar IPPs on digitization, and do you think they'll take the first leap?
I think wind took a initial forward leap on digital, and solar is following the trend. And a lot of things can be done in solar, which will be a little difficult from the software perspective because of not many sensors or not many capabilities are already in-house in sensors today. We don't have sensors at the module level to see if there's a module cracking or module underperformances, right? So there, the industry is moving towards how can I use the existing data to see if there is anything that I can do on predicting a module underperformance or predicting inverter failure and stuff like that, where we are heavily collaborating with a lot of our IPPs that we work with to see what are the real pain points there, and how do we use data and analytics and intelligence to come up with an algorithm that can help them in that. But solar has a long way to go compared to wind.
Okay, Venkat, could you throw light on some of the collaboration that you had with IPPs in the past with some real-time figures and stats for audience to really understand, or let's say for IPPs to understand? Are there any stats you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I can share one stat. Where we did some POC work in Europe, where the requirement was use 10 minutes SCADA data to understand the underperformance due to yaw misalignment and power curve. We were able to predict yaw misalignment. I call it as a static misalignment, which is an inherent problem due to nozzle transfer function. And we found that had the problem been fixed earlier, they could have close to about 1.5 to 1.75 gigawatt hour could have been saved in the small wind farm of over 32 megawatts. That one stat that we can bring in. And also we have seen power curve, I would say power curve underperformance due to a small factor of how the sensor is behaving, where had they found it like at least 2-3 months ahead of time, they would have saved anywhere between 0.5 to 0.8% of the revenue. And all these factors are very, very subjective, because end of the day, the tool is there only to predict and give an intelligence to the user, say this is what is happening in a wind farm, right? How do they go about and resolving the solution, working with somebody like, a service provider like Vestas or Siemens Gamesa? That's where the real value proposition and return on revenue is going to come from. All right. We have seen quite a bit of use cases across the board on predictive on predicting component failures ahead of time and stuff like that as well, where we use our tool Zypher RX or Zypher VX Plus, to help the customers do that.
Okay, great. Now I'm going to quickly take in some insights from our audience as well. Building on to my interaction with Mr. Rajendran first, I think on what percentage of assets do we see completely digitized? So I'm going to be putting up this poll and let's see what our audience has to say. Okay, about 60% people have voted. I'm going to be closing in the next 5 seconds. Okay. So now the results are on your screen. So I think in the time frame of 5 years, we're looking at about 54% people who believe it's going to be between 30 to 70%. All right, I'm going to come back to the panelists to have their views. Maybe you can just note down these data sets.
Yeah, digitalization definitely help. Our all panelists, I think they are in the agreement. The very reason, it does help to improve the productivity. It also makes many decision more informed decision, I should call it. And as the things progress, there will be more sensors. Right now, the turbines are equipped with the traditional sensors, right? Whatever been used maybe around 4 or 5 years back. Hardly a couple of things have been added. So we will not see only in terms of the coverage, but in terms of the variety of sensor also, I am optimistic it should increase.
All right. Now, this is more, the next 2 polls are going to be more to do with AI and ML, when it talks about data sharing or the limitation or the willingness of IPP, which may affect the competitive advantage that an IPP has. So let's see if you think that the use of data to improve performance may affect competitive advantage or intellectual property. Do the IPPs believe that, or does the industry believe this?
Sorry. This question is for operational data, right?
Yes.
Then it's not a problem.
So, Dineshji, I think I'd like your views on this these results now. I think we have quite a bit of the audience who believes otherwise, right? And I think that the screen is all yours now. What do you have to say?
Very interesting revelation, but it's very. My approach is very simple in the sense, if you go to a doctor and you don't say what your problem is, how do you get cured? It's as simple as that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, Vipul, if I can add to that, Rajini here, if I can add to that. Yeah, hey. I can just add to that. So I think, this is a very common perception that data is not secure in a country like India. But I think that is changing, because the industry is becoming more mature. The IPP is getting bigger and bigger. The legal contracts are becoming more stronger. The NDA is being signed. So I think things are changing. It could have been true like 5-10 years ago, but I think things are changing, and that perception will also change. But I'm really surprised to see the results where people still think that sharing data can impact your competitiveness and IP. That may not be the case. The things are changing pretty fast, and I think we will soon, move from being a developing market to a mature market. I think that's already happening. But yeah, the results still do surprise me also, like you.
So the reason I consciously put up those questions is because of my previous interaction. I think this has come out very evidently, And we want to test, is it really that true when it comes to the wind fraternity, how they look at it. And it is quite surprising, despite, I think, from a very strong opinion by Dinesh ji on this. But I think that's a nice way to look at how the industry, which may overall help us all. Now, one thing which comes across, when you talk about AI ML, they would I would this is coming in from all of you, from Dinesh, from Rudraksh, from Mr. Sanjay. Is it completely reliable, or is it all right to completely rely on these technologies? Because to understand the difference between the expected and actual behaviors at a site, are they completely reliable technologies?
See, the machine learning is also a exercise which you took over a longer period. I mean, suppose somebody wants to really build a knowledge about the blade performance, say, for example. It's otherwise very challenging for OEMs also to understand how the blades have been gone over a period. So until unless people start building a database every year, say maybe good photography just to start with, and have a pictures every 6 months, 1 year, and somebody looks after 3 years, or some failure incident happens, somebody go back and track it, how the blade has behaved, and program it in their own tool. Yes, if this is the pattern of the behavior, this is how the blade before failure behaved, it definitely helps. But it required little patience, and there is nothing, I mean, taking a full shot on the tool. It should be equally complemented by the domain people. So when images are taken, tool will say something observation. It should be quickly checked by the domain expert and put their remarks. Maybe he would like to take further measurement on that particular turbine. But it's a thing has been happening, and is going to sustain. It definitely helps. Let us understand, we are now at maybe 37, 38 gigawatt. Fleet is going to increase. Even at OEM level, things become now challenging to really monitor the fleet. The earlier people used to monitor. So these tools are required, and these are the technology going to stay.
All right, Mr. Rajendran, I'll have you in on this.
Yeah. See, I'm just speaking from my experience, right? What I feel is, yes, definitely the digital transformation is going to help. Any innovation, right? Whatever is going to be in the future, definitely the digital component is going to play a very major role in that innovation. We need to have a lot of consistency, right? See, today, when we started doing this, there are a lot of data available today, and a lot of insights can be drawn, right? There is no point in just keep pumping the insights to the site and asking them to take action, right? How much they can do in a day. So what matters is how effectively you are using this data. And once you take action based on the data, are you validating that? And this is very important, right? This is very, very important when you build the models and other things. That's why we do what we do is we develop a train and test model, and we just keep running to see how accurate it is. And either it is IPP or a OEM, we need to have a very, very consistent digital plan, right? Transformative plan, as Venkat was telling, it is a journey, right? Just doing halfway and then new set of people coming and then taking over and completely putting a new idea, it's not going to work. And everyone is asking what is the ROI, right? See, some cases it's very difficult, right? For example, if I just say one gearbox or one generator, my saving is how much? Direct and indirect put together, train, everything put together is 1 crore, right? Is it not tangible, but something is intangible because the cost has not happened. Are we factoring those? So this is something which is required. We have to just keep on building it and see how effectively it is as we progress. That's my view on this.
Okay. Now,
Typically, there will be a cost if we don't have it, right? If you have it, you take a fruit of it. There is no lesser breakdown and more availability, reliability. And one of the friends says that life extension. So life extension doesn't happen at the end of 25 years. It has to start from first year. So at the end of 25 years, also much feature fleet is available. So it's question of not having will give you the cost. This investment will definitely build the reliability.
Yes, yes, Dinesh, I completely agree with you. So people who are talking about ROI has to measure the cost. That cost, what Dinesh is saying, if you're not investing on a digital.
Yeah. Which otherwise would have occurred.
Exactly.
Okay, Mr. Rajiv, I think, are you there?
Rajiv, we are missing.
You're missing. Okay. All right. Now, Rudesh, the next question I think is put up to you. What do you see as a latest trend, let's say, from an IPP perspective, while emphasizing on O&M? Is it going to be the DIY model? Is it going to be the do it for me model? Is it going to be a mix and match? Or are you going to be purely dependent on one technology partner?
Sorry, can you please repeat? There was some background noise. I could not hear that.
What I'm trying to ask is, what do you see as a latest trend for IPPs when it comes to the O&M? Do you see a model which is a do-it-yourself model? I think Sanjay ji's mentioned they've taken a conscious decision on these lines. Do you see a model which is going to be do-it-for-me model, where you hire a O&M contract who gives everything? Do you see a mix of both of this, where you take both of you work together, or do you see that you would rather invest in a high-end technology partner and use machine learning or AI to deliver the asset? So what are the trends you see in this?
For me, or like from Vena perspective is, what is your core strength? Are you a utility-based company? Are you a pure private equity-based company? What is your expertise in? What is that you want to bring in is the first question. So, of course, each of those activity will have its own advantages and disadvantages. Doing a self O&M will lead to a better control. Maybe it will give an option to improve the production, or at the same time, maybe it will slightly improve the overall cost. That means, I mean, you try to optimize your cost by doing a self O&M. But is that the strategy what the company wants to engage in? Because self O&M is not a second day activity. It involves a lot of preparation, planning, and then of course at the same time you need to get engaged on a longer perspective. So those are the questions. So when it comes to the industry, like we started seeing that a lot of IPPs are trying to utilize multiple options, as you told, like a hybrid model. Certain things are done by the OEM, certain things are done by the IPPs, and also there are certain things which are done by the independent service providers. So when it comes to Vena Energy, like outside India, we started seeing this development happening in terms of solar, which is given the condition much easier to do it. And also contractually, you are the only person to do the O&M because there are like split contracts used. There are multiple people who have been engaged in construction. So end of the day, you take the complete ownership and then start doing O&M. For wind, that is not the case. We still continue to have a larger OEMs doing the job. I see it as a both way that is going to happen going in future. The self O&M would pick up in a larger extent once you have a certain portfolio size, because it is not wise to start the self O&M with a 50 megawatt capacity. Because you end up doing a lot of things. You need to have a lot of engineers or expertise within the team to start doing the self O&M. While you have a size, then you can start looking at that. But from my individual perspective, what I feel is it's more about what is your company strategy, your value, and what is your core strength. Do more on that. Like, for example, do more on digitalization, get more insights on the data, collaborate with the OEMs and the market leaders or the expertise in the digitalization, engage with them, and then together bring in a product or a solution which will overall improve the performance. For example, I agree with when Pia was mentioning about COVID bringing in a lot of opportunity into digitalization, especially when we were planning for our scheduled maintenance. We had to go away with this traditional way. We had to think different, because COVID is more like do what is more important to you now rather than doing something which is good. So that is, the days are gone. I mean, what was our BCP is now is no more a BCP. It is the actual plan. So given all these conditions, what I would say is like the industry is moving towards multiple option. Again, it purely depends on individuals, IPPs, as what is their strategy and how they want to live in the industry.
All right. Great. I think those are some very interesting facts. So size of a portfolio definitely helps you make that decision. Let's see what our audience has to say on these latest trends. Okay. 5 more seconds. All right. So here are the results for the poll. Sanjay ji, I'd like to get your views on these data points. What do you think? Yeah, Sanjay ji, if you could just unmute. Okay, I think we're seeing a lag in his, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
lost in between. Yeah. So of course, I think results, what we see, I don't know what sort of audience is there, a complete profile, but then I think it is as per expectation, right? Because of course, I think Rudresh also quite nicely elaborated on this, because it is like strategic decision finally end of day, right? Because everything comes with a certain risk. So one way it is like what you want to gain, right? IPP, of course, it is maximizing the yield, right? And then return on your investment. These are the primary focus areas. But then it naturally gives a lot of risk, and then build your own organization for that, right? Whether organization ready for that, right? So these are the, I think, basic questions somebody has to really answer before they jump into this play. If you see like recent trend, right, they are more into like compulsions, right? Of course, there are very good OEMs. They are giving their best, right? No doubt on that. But there are certain distressed OEM, right? And then IPP is unable to achieve their basic targeted budgeted revenue. In that case, there is no option, right? So it is compulsion. There is no choice. You have to go and start looking for either third-party O&M service provider. Otherwise, take your own call. Start your own O&M. So it is call left to respective IPP, right? And then it is then a long-term strategy, right? Called rest of OEM, where you want to really leverage and get control of every single asset, right? And then leverage through that. So these are the basic two larger questions somebody has to really look into. But I personally feel, as based on our experience, really it adds value. Of course, there are dynamics. Somebody really want to really take a digital journey that route immediately to optimize yield and improve their reliability. That could be one option. Second option is, of course, these are different business models. But then somebody may look at taking into sale point, but it requires a lot of building the strain, competency, because naturally every IPP and especially Renew has got the larger fleet and multiple OEMs. And multiple OEMs brings multiple technologies and multiple challenges. So whether you got that leverage, then your SCM team, right, engineering aspect, technical intervention, IT services. So all this has to be really looked into whether really that is cohesive to achieve your goal. So all these aspects somebody has to really consider. And as far as Renew concerned, of course, we started on the journey of sale point with certain megawatts, and that is a call, a strategic call already taken.
Absolutely.
And I have a small query. Yes, you rightly said in India broadly it is based on the compulsion, is not as a strategy to do on, right? But Renew being one of the leading IPP and largest fleet, you have taken some challenges, right? How is your broad experience? I mean, does it help you in terms of the better performance, or does it help you to reduce your cost? I mean, how it is panning out?
Yeah, basically it is mix of all, I would say, right? It is work in still progress, I would say, right? But a larger aspect is like getting control on our own asset, right? Because of course we are bound by contracts, and then we got very little leverage. Let us take example of our digital journey, digital interventions. So of course there are technology, there are solutions, right? But finally it is up to service provider or OEM to get those findings implemented and those gaps addressed. Then you will get the real realization of the value, right? So it is again like OEM driven up to certain, so with due respect to all OEMs, right? But then when you got this aspect in your hand, always you got better choices, right, to make and see that those gaps addressed quickly without any interference.
So control gives you some comfort in terms of implementing the actions required.
Yeah, and faster, and the time is also very important. How fast you can implement. Of course, a lot of learnings are there, and then building your own strength. Because when you do all yourself, of course, there are of course a few tries, but then finally, when you got longer horizon, always you reach there. So I think these are the strategic calls, but then it gives results long run.
Do you foresee some proactive calls for switching your O&M metrics? I mean, do you foresee in midterm?
Yeah, that is there, of course, but there are again like because it is not all old fleet, right? Because still in renew, new fleet is getting added up, right? So of course, this new fleet naturally comes with its warranty terms, and then how you are going to address those warranty terms, because the industry way it is posed now, 2-year compulsory.
That's okay.
So there you can't do much, right? But beyond that, it is your choice how you want to go about that. So it is sort of like a change of mindset. But yes, that journey has begun in the new, and we really started working on that.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Majida, you want to take over the moderation? All right.
I think maybe next time.
Okay, wonderful. All right, now I have a question from Ujanta, who would like to understand that land banks being one of the critical assets. I think there's currently our IPP is looking to come out with a common platform to reach out to the government to reconsider their decision to lift restrictions on allotment of wastelands. So what's your view on this? Are IPPs doing anything for the land banks? Mr. Majid, I think it's best.
Okay, this question for me. Okay. Yeah, the land is, as I mentioned in some other topic also, land has been one of the bottleneck for building any substantial site project, which is the case in case of bidding, right? So land has been a constraint. So yes, that collaboration among IPP is required. Frankly speaking, I'm not very sure what is the current actions being planned by as a association level. But this is something bottleneck which is not just hurting independent generators, but as a country also, when trying to achieve the target which we have set for ourselves, is also not looking doable. Right. So land is something needs to be resolved, and hopefully, yeah, things are improving. If you go by even during the COVID time, people are finding it time to look at and review the policies. Many state government has now responded positively, seeing as an opportunity. But yes, a lot of things yet to do.
Okay. Now, Venkat, I'm going to bring you in on this one. I heard Sanjay ji, I heard Dinesh ji talk on the self-O&M or capabilities. Now, do you think from a solution provider's point of view, you guys are seasoned. You guys think solutions day in, day out. Your bread and butter works on this. Do you think that this is an approach to bring down the cost and improve the financial viability of an asset, or is it really left to the IPPs to make that decision for a larger or longer sustainability of projects if they decide to do self-owned?
Yeah, I'll answer this in a quite different way from the digital perspective, right? For somebody to go self-O&M, right? It's not about going and cranking the bolts or going and putting the grease. That's not the reason they go for self-O&M, right? They want to take over the control of their destiny, right? Because when the tariff is going down, right, they're looking at a revenue and looking at a more control on how they can convert the given resource, which is wind or solar, into a maximum potential, maximum AEP. So given that situation, maybe there might be a conflict on what the IPPs want to do and what the OEMs are obligated to do as per their contract. So for somebody to go to a self O&M, right, they have to look at it in two different ways. What is the cost benefit? And also look at from a perspective of, if I'm going away from a domain or a owner's perspective, I have to look at how digital can actually play a role in giving me an intelligence so that I can do what a service provider can do by myself. So that's where digital can help in. There's a question on ML that came in as well, right? How to use ML and AI is completely dependent on the strategy of data you bring in, and also this is where the self-O&M help that digital can provide. We can provide a lot of insights from a digital perspective on action that needs to be taken, and also a predictability comes into play on how we can predict a failure or predict something is bad going to happen so that I can take actionable insights. In this way, these are the things that digital can help an IPP go towards self-O&M and create a real benefit on revenue, and also take the destiny in their own hands rather than leaving it to somebody else to help them in their revenue creation to satisfy their own requirement on revenue or returns or whatever the board wants to do.
Yeah. All right, great. So I'll be putting across one last poll from our side, which sort of gives this a much required shape. So what factors does one see were most important for a digital wind revolution? One, definitely it's the operational efficiency. The second is cost efficiency. Third is the more proactive decision making. So let's see what we think is the most important factors. All right, so here are the results. I think more or less it's a perfect balance of all the three components, which leads to the final success. Great. So on this note, I'd like to have the final maybe 30 seconds final closing remarks from each of the panelists on the takeaway from your point of view for the entire audience after COVID. The mood is definitely, I would say, has improved from the start of COVID to where we are right now. So I'll start with Mr. Rajendran first. Your final, takeaway for the audience.
Yeah. What I feel is the OEMs are still better. It's my personal view, because as I told, there are only two things the IPPs are thinking. There are some bad experience from the other OEMs looking at their financial positions. Their management is forcing them to look for alternate options or make them prepared for handling the things. And they feel that they don't have control over the assets. And third is they feel they can improve the response time. But what I would like to say is that today, I don't think they're going to make a big savings in the cost by operating themselves. That is one, because the OEMs have drastically reduced the prices. Second, in terms of response, let us take availability. I don't think even the best IPP will be in a position to match the availability what the OEMs are going to give, right? It's not going to be more than that. And AEP, increase of AEP is something which is debatable. I think it has to be done with more of collaboration, right? If you ask me today, who's the best to build a machine learning model, it's the OEM. Only because it is not great, because he has the end-to-end visibility of everything, right? So these are my final comments.
I'm sure Dinesh ji and Sanjay ji and will have a lot to add to your points. All right, Venkat, I'll move to you now on this.
No, thanks, Vipul. I think the last survey that you did, right? It came, it gave a lot of insights, right? Digital is not about giving, one impact on just cost or operational. It's all of the above, right? It's all of, digital is nothing but an enabler, right? We as the digital provider is going to enable the IPPs or utilities to take intelligent action or actionable insights at the real time so that they can get benefit out of it. So don't look at digital as a magic wand, which is going to create an impact the next day. It's a journey. It's an enabler. It's also the smartness of the users to make maximum use of the digital. So,
Rudresha, from your point, because I know the other two panelists will not finish on time on this one.
Okay. For me, on the closing comment, digitalization is one thing which is surely going to happen. I mean, we have been witnessing in that right from the old days of like 2002 to right now in 2020. There has been a consistent transformation. Only thing is how do we integrate multiple layers of data to bring into a common platform so that anybody can utilize it for making the right decision. So that is where things has to happen and then further has to grow. And I mean, that is my comment on the data and the digitalization process related. Not more comments on the self O&M or like how do we handle O&M going forward. So no comment from my side on that. Thanks for the
all right
listening.
Dinesh, the screen is yours.
See, digitalization definitely helps. We have seen it, and maybe after 5 years we will not talk about whether it is required or not, because I could see it is a de facto standard. It's a question of how depth it will go. It depends on how the industry really wish to collaborate. Because with digitalization, a lot of transparency comes. Yeah, because data speaks, right? And we can't paint all OEM with the same brush. I agree with what my friend PR said. Okay, I mean, if somebody is looking for a wind farm performance, I don't see OEMs are also against it. So having a common objective of wind farm performance, collaboration is the only way. And if we have the data says something to take some actions, I'm pretty confident the OEM will take action. Sometimes, yes, there may be some delay, but yes, if the cost-effective OEM services are available, responsive service, if I call it, is the option way forward, and OEM has to be data-driven.
All right, Sanjay ji.
Yeah, so of course I agree. Of course, digital is the way forward. There's no choice, and the COVID is the best example, right? It is the opportunity, in fact, to relook into a digital strategy again. That is only going to be a future. So there's no doubt on that. As far as, of course, self-O&M or maybe comprehensive O&M, always there will be debate, because again, it is every IPP has got own take on this. But again, like single, like what Mr. Rajendran told, I agree with Mr. Dinesh also. So it is not like building entire thing independently, right? Self-O&M also has a role to play collaborative way. OEM has got his own strengths, right? They have built a technology, they got the best strengths and domain expertise. So always IPP has got their own strengths. So it is like basically marrying the both strengths together and getting the base return for both the parties, and it is basically looking for a win-win solution. I think that is the way forward.
Yeah. All right, Rajni, are you there? Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave all of you with a final, food for thought. First, primarily, we are moving towards a new era when we talk about asset optimization. But that also leaves a question first in front of us. Are we ready in terms of our skill sets at an organization and team level who understands the technology. On a very lighter note, we're moving on to the entire virtual webinar model. Since we do a lot of live conferences, it was, we had to get our team also to speed in terms of operating an entire webinar. One can only imagine what it takes, to have all wind assets completely digitized, a team sitting in a remote location, managing and accessing. So that's the skill set is going to be a major role in deployment and the final success which we deliver. So a final last poll to give all our panelists: do we see digital gaps in organization industry right now? Yeah, so I think we have more than 90% of people who agree that yes, it's going to be a major challenge. And I think as IPPs, as solution OEMs, all of us together, I think this needs to be addressed for the larger benefit to all. So with this, I think I'd like to officially conclude today's webinar. Thank you all the panelists, Mr. Rajendran, Rudresha, Venkata, Dinesh, Sanjayji, all of you, thank you very much for taking out time and being here. I hope we could do justice to the entire session, but definitely, Dineshji, you're on next time on the moderation, without a doubt. All right. So I think, thank you. It's lunchtime for all of us. Let's have our hot meals, and we'll be back with a more exciting topic from an insider for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Two different questions. Close it now.
Yeah, you can close it.